時間就差唔多，人數啱啱夠。
It's the appointed time and we have a quorum. I call the meeting to order.
我知啊，咁所以而家開始就等佢哋點咗名先喎，而家。
The meeting, I have already called the meeting to order, so we have the number of members recorded. First of all, this is the first meeting of the Year of the Snake. I wish you all healthy in the Year of the Snake and happiness. First item of the agenda, confirmation of the minutes of meeting. Minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of December 2012 has been circulated to members. The Secretariat has not received any proposals for amendment. May I confirm the minutes of meeting? Thank you, Mr. Wong Ting Kwong. Item number 2, information paper issued since last meeting. That is 1. CV bracket 1514 stroke 12 to 13 bracket 01. Members, any comments? Then we move on to the next item, date of next meeting and items for discussion. The administration told us that the regular meeting in March will be held on the 19th of March, which is a Tuesday at 2:30 in the afternoon. So far, there is only one item, which is economic and trade relations with the mainland, manpower arrangement for enhancing the functions of the mainland offices of the Hong Kong SAR government. This is the first item on the list of outstanding items for discussion. The clerk said that so far, there is only one item proposed by the administration. Perhaps we will ask the secretary when he comes in whether there will be any other items in the next meeting, because at the moment it stands at only one. Next item on the agenda, review of the research and development cash rebate scheme. Please invite the administration to come in.
新年好，
恭喜發財！
新年好，新年好！副處長身體健康啊！啊，
仲要永不皺皮啊！
用咩化妝品啊？
即係頂咗長住。
我首先就歡迎
Welcome. The administration, we have with us the Commissioner for Innovation and Technology, Ms. Janet Wong, Deputy Commissioner for Innovation and Technology, Mr. John Wong, and Assistant Commissioner for Innovation and Technology, Funding Schemes, Mr. Frank Zhang. Commissioner, are you going to take us through the paper? Yes. Thank you, Chairman. This is a report on the review of the Research and Development Cash Rebate Scheme. Well, this scheme was first introduced in 1st of April 2010, as at the end of 2012, we have altogether approved $36.8 million for a large number of projects. Since it takes time for the companies to know about this scheme, last year the number of applications wasn't as satisfactory, but in the last year it has greatly improved. Say, for example, since the level of cash rebate has been raised from 10% to 30% for the first 11 months, the cash rebate amount has increased from $5 million to $26 million. That is about over 300%. For the partner projects, as there is a pre-registration arrangement, because we need to work on the budget based on the data. The number of approval has increased from 47 to 115 applications. We believe that with our publicity, the scheme has been widely recognized. In our review, we have conducted a questionnaire and some surveys. All successful companies are of the view that they are satisfied with the scheme after the increase of the cash rebate level to 30%, and over 90% of them are satisfied with the ease of application and application procedures and the prompt processing of the application. We have worked out some improvement measures. They are not overhauled. We will include the Hong Kong Institute of Biotechnology to be one of the local institutes. And on top of that, we have introduced some relaxations on the applications. With members' agreement in the next financial year, this will be put in place. We have also looked at our commitment. It stands at 130 million. The commitment level is already at $130 million, and that means when all applicants have come to us to claim the rebate, it will reach this amount. But in order to sustain the scheme, we think that when the level of commitment has reached $160 or $170 million, we will need to seek funding approval for a further injection from the Finance Committee, but at the moment it's not necessary. Thank you. Very good. There is a very good response. It has jumped by a marked increase from $5 million to $26 million. It's very good news. I hope this will be kept up. Mr. Low Kwok, I support this scheme. With the increase of rebate level, we see that it has made a difference. But the applicants will have to cooperate with designated local public research institutions. That itself should be encouraged. But in some companies, they already have in-house R&D capabilities, and they may not be able to find a suitable partner. If companies or enterprises have the capability, the determination to conduct R&D projects, they should be encouraged. May I ask the administration to give me more information? How can we, in terms of such projects, help them more? I know that there are various other schemes, but they don't seem to be very successful. We need to be innovative by aiming at assisting directly enterprises that would like to do their own R&D. Are there any ways to lower the threshold? I have heard about this quite a lot, and it's been reflected to us very often. There is one item under the ITF that does not require cooperation. It is an SME R&D program or scheme. There is direct assistance or subsidies for companies to do their own R&D, or, if they so wish, collaborate with a research institution. Under our scheme, when they put in $100, we will give them $30. Given our structure and manpower level, we cannot verify each and every application for the amount put in. But we are aware that more should be done to encourage enterprises to do their own R&D. We are reviewing that under the SME R&D scheme, whether more can be done to help the industry. Mr. Low. In this regard, there is a strong demand from the sector for a number of years that about the tax allowance or tax refund of R&D costs. We have change of government, and there was a time when there was a warm response, but they have yet to be implemented. We don't know whether there will be some good news coming from the Financial Secretary. I do think that you need to look at the shortcomings and the strong points on the various schemes and to help enterprises who would like to do their R&D. Yes, thank you, members. That's something we will do. There are some schemes in the Science Park, and also the RSME R&D scheme target startup projects. Yes, we will review to find out how we can do better. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong. We've been saying that there is too little devoted to R&D in Hong Kong. I'm quite happy to hear that this has been taken forward and the scheme has proved to be quite successful. There are a number of recommendations in the paper. They include the level of cash rebate, pre-registration of partnership projects, so on and so forth. I have a question for the Commissioner. Will they be implemented straight away? When it comes to the financial commitment, I think it will all be spent by 2015 or even before that if we have a large number of applications. But you say that a review will be conducted in 2015. There is a possibility that the scheme will be put to a halt. Can you maybe adjust the time for review in accordance with the situation when you see that the funding is close to depletion? You will conduct the review earlier. There is another issue that is close to the heart of the public. Are there any effectiveness about the money spent? Any commercialization of the R&D projects? That it is actually produced and used? So 3 questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. About our enhancement measures, and next financial year from April 1st, we'll implement that. There's no problem. We have preparation. As for the review, 2015, because the scheme will have gone for 5 years. But doesn't mean that we will not have a review. Actually, every year we come to this panel to brief members, have a look at the figures. Now in the coming year, if the situation is so good or as good as what we had the past year, then we don't have to wait for 2015. Perhaps we have to come back for further funding. We will not wait until the fund is exhausted. And if the projects are finished, then we'll have the rebate. So the commitments will be triggered, say, a couple of years before. So the commitment is more than 100 million. Now, if the speed is what we have today, then we don't have to wait for 2015. So I can ask Mr. Wong that we'll monitor the situation and we'll report to members earlier. And thirdly, about the rebate given, any results, I'd like to thank members for appreciating the effects of technology. We are glad that for the past year or so, for the public sector, we have been promoting that and have seen results, and the users have told us, so we have had examples. And some organizations are not in public sector, say they are the SMEs. For the SME scheme, actually, it is incorporated into our trial scope. Perhaps Mr. Wong, the Deputy Commissioner, will give examples. Mr. Wong? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps I can cite a couple of examples. Say earlier on, the use of a radio satellite technology, kind of distance sensing or detection. We can detect land subsidence. So we resort to the Chinese U. Say at the end of 2008, it was finished. And then they went for commercialization. There are some discussions, and we are glad to see that the Highways Department, say for the high-speed rail, actually they have resorted to this technology to look at the land situation, to see if there is stabilization, and the accuracy is very good. It's about micrometer level. And last year, for the Guangdong-Hong Kong cooperation aspect, the Polytechnic University of Hong Kong had a kind of robot for rehabilitation arm. Now, last year in Geneva, in the Invention Award, Hong Kong got the Gold Award. Now, for individual hospitals, they are negotiating. They have some non-exclusive license. Let's hope that they can try it out. And also the Productivity Council. In 2011, they had the automobile used pedestrian identification system. In May 2011, they did that, and now, in terms of cost, it is lower than similar products overseas. As far as you understand, 2 Hong Kong companies are negotiating with the Hong Kong PC to see if they can get the license in terms of the technology, and also about authorization of technology transfer. If there is an agreement, if there is good negotiation, then there can be technology transfer and there will be commercialization. Thank you. Now, Commissioner, for the commitment, if it's up to 160 million, then you come back to us for further funding. Is that right? Probably it's before 2015. So you use the sum as the yardstick. Is that right? Yes, for the platform projects, money involved is not so substantial. For example, it's $200,000. They got 30%. It's not a big sum. As say for a case, the rebate is $3 million. If they don't contact us, then we'll call them. We'll follow up on that. Sometimes there will be a change of personnel, and so we have to follow up. So in terms of collaborative projects, they give $5 and we give $5. the fabrication is really 100%. But for platform projects, some companies, perhaps on the mainland or overseas, then the sum is not substantial, and we don't have a deadline. And we call them, they say they'll wait and see. The turn-up rate is about 60%. Now, it's pre-registered. So if they can do it, we have to give the money. As I said, for the registered projects, we had a lot last year. So it's $130 million now. So perhaps if we reach $160 million, it will not be far away. So we don't have to wait until 2015. So before that, we have to come to us so that we'll go to Finance Committee. Okay, we still have money to have rebates, but some other people may be in the pipeline, so we'll come to you earlier. Mr. Jeffrey Lam, recently I have come to the knowledge that some Hong Kong young people have come up with certain products or inventions, and they have got some rebate for their products in the market. Actually, they are quite acceptable and they are highly recognized. But they told me that for Hong Kong, for expenditure in this regard, let's not compare us with Israel. Say if we compare ourselves with neighboring territories, in terms of innovation and technology expenditure, many territories are above us. They said that other people, other territories have a good tax concession or reduction scheme. Actually, the Business and Professional Alliance has mentioned this before. So for research expenditure, there can be 3 times in terms of tax deduction. Just now I listened to the Commissioner. And of course, people have to spend money on technology or research. But I can see that neighboring or other territories have been doing these sort of things. They can do it. Why is it that sometimes we cannot do what other people can do? Is it because of manpower? Perhaps in the past, if you had few cases, then you did not devote a lot of people to that. But in the policy address, the Chief Executive also emphasized that is in terms of innovation and technology or testing or certification. So in terms of tax deduction, perhaps we can introduce this system with the Financial Secretary respond to us within these 10 days. Actually, some time ago we mentioned this already. But there's no formal response as yet, then we'll still advise the government on this. I hope that the government can really help the young people or Hong Kong companies in terms of technology, so that people can develop that further. So no tax concession or deduction, to have other measures so that you implement them. Commissioner, will you talk to the FS? Yes, I can convey members' views to the FS. Of course, I cannot speak on behalf of the FS, but as I explained earlier, in terms of operational difficulties, there is another matter. It's about the concept. 16.5%, that's our low tax in Hong Kong. Also, we have a simple tax regime. As far as I understand, for the Treasury, etc., if there is tax deduction, they have to think of the future path. About innovative industries, etc., they have to be comprehensive. So it's not for the Innovation Technology Commission to talk about that. But Mr. Lam mentioned other young people. We can provide alternative routes for them. Surely we can have work to support these young people, and it's worthwhile doing that, and we'll do that. As I said, we have a comprehensive review. Say for the Science Park, actually it's helping some young startups, and also the ITC, it gives support under the SME scheme. So perhaps we can reshuffle that in terms of monetary terms, in terms of the scope or the extent, so that the support can be greater. As members may be aware, you know that there is difficulty in Hong Kong. We don't have a national defense, and we don't have a manufacturing industry as such, really, in this regard. But our young people are very innovative, so perhaps we can do something more in terms of finance. After having the comprehensive review, we'll come to this panel, then members can give further input, so we'll follow up on that. Mr. Lam, for the young people in the university studies, there is a good environment and they have some professors to advise them. After they graduate, if they want to continue with research work, perhaps they cannot find suitable jobs, and the job itself may not be able to allow them to do research work. So perhaps what they were doing could not be continued. Actually, we have suggested that there should be some sort of a youth entrepreneurial startup park. So we should provide a good environment for the young people. We should have some counseling advice to them, especially technological advice. If they have ideas, then ideas can be turned into products, and the products can be commercialized. Of course, we can have seed companies, but actually there's a vast deduction of money, and then people can't have much profit. So we should have some arrangements for the upward mobility for the young people. You know that a lot of young people are very frustrated, they don't have much opportunity. So we should help the young people. Hope that the administration can think about this further.
Yes, we will have concrete proposals. Just proposals or implementation? Of course, I would like to see them implemented. We're actually in the process of considering it. There is great demand in the market. Say, for example, for the syrup, the Small Entrepreneur Research Assistance Program, there are limitations. But if we put in place a new program, then we have to deal with the existing, the people that are already involved. If what we're doing is insufficient, well, that is something that we agree, and we are actually thinking about other ways to help them. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, in the last part of your paper, you said that there will be a review. I expect, or perhaps when you ask for further funding injection, I expect you to give me more detailed information. Say, for example, the point raised by Mr. Wong Ting Kwong. What are the actual outcomes of these projects? Well, there may be new products. New products are used by the airport authority or the hospital authority. Yes, I understand that not every product of R&D project will be commercialized, but we would like to get more information, some objective data. I hope that you will give us information about outcomes of these projects in your review. Let me respond to Mr. Sin. It will be difficult to just tell you. Starting from June last year, well, that was the time when we came to report to you about a review, and that was a video clip to help members understand. Of course, it will be better if there is a visual aid. You can show us a clip like YouTube, then it will be better. Thank you. Next, Mr. Charles Mock. A number of members, Mr. Jeffrey Lam and Mr. Loy Kwok, touched on common concerns. In the CE's manifesto, he made it clear that when it comes to encouraging R&D, he's touched on both tax deduction and this type of cash rebate scheme. And indeed, the cash rebate level has been raised to 30%. When it comes to tax deduction, perhaps during the election campaign, he hasn't asked the Treasury to the industry. Tax deduction may be direct, but the main difference is that companies should not be restrained to enter into the system of the ITC. For different reasons, companies may not need to use government money. They can invest in their own R&D, and as a result, they are not in your system. The commissioner said perhaps for administrative reasons, you have to vet them. Of course, if they are already in your system, you have already vetted their projects, it would be better, it would be easier to deal with such cases. But if we are to have more useful projects, instead of trying to solicit new entrants, you have to find ways to reach out to the industry. Say the Cyberport and the Science Park, they have changed the direction along this line. I hope that in your coming consultation, well, I think it will only be my wishful thinking to see something on Wednesday, but at least you need to have some idea about the direction of change in the next consultation. Well, I do think that when it comes to relaxation, there is the same problem. You have to go into your system. Projects receiving 30% of rebate will also have to be public bodies. But I understand your concern that if it goes into the hands of private bodies, then you may worry about the way the money is spent. But if you want to encourage private companies to use local institutions, would you consider expanding the scope of this scheme? You can maybe impose certain restrictions. I hope that you will make it clear at the outset that the next stage will be more open. We fully understand the explanations you've given. We hope that we won't hear the same explanations from you telling us that it can't be done. About the test use of products by public bodies, it started in about 2 years ago, and it was a brave move. Members are always very concerned about collusion between the government and the business sector. Hence, we ring-fenced the public bodies. They are the airport authority or the C&E department. I hear between the lines that members would like us to be bolder. But we're talking about public money. If there are any irregularities, people ask why it would happen in the first place. If we're not brave enough, we will not be breaking new ground. I will look into it. We can have a discussion to see where we can strike the balance. Of course, the braver you are, the riskier it will be. Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I am glad to hear that you did not just give me an outright no. I know that a balance has to be struck, and you are aware that you need to be bolder. We encourage you to do so. There was an ARC, Applied Research Council. At the beginning, they were very brave, but it started at the wrong time. That was a burst of the technology bubble. We have to draw on the experience. We need to have a detailed discussion. Commissioner, I hope that you will be more forward-looking and to think out of the box. If other countries can do it, so can we. Please follow it up. Next, Mr. Chung Kok Pan. Thank you. I have a question for the Commissioner. In the discussion paper, there is the response after the third year of implementation about the amount of rebate approved and the number of applications. 2011 to 12, the total amount is 11.4 million. I think that was at the level of 10% cash rebate level, which means the R&D amount is 144 billion. For last year, the total amount is 19.5 million. If it stands at 30%, that means we're talking about an R&D amount of 65 million. On the face of it, there seems to be an increase, but in effect, is a marked drop. Why? Well, for the partnership project, the application percentage is low. Why? Companies don't find it appealing, or is the application procedure too onerous? You see, the actual amount has dropped. It is rather complicated, Mr. Zhong. The 30% started on the 1st of February. Is in between two financial years. The increase is not solely a result of the 30% increase, the increase of 30%. And the reason why at the beginning there is a small number of partnership projects, it is difficult to understand why. We have sent out a lot of letters, but the enterprise may be too big, so we have to make telephone calls to ask the professors of universities to attend briefings, etc., to tell them. We have done a lot of publicity, and the awareness has been raised. Frank, perhaps you can tell us about the increase and the increase in demand. Mr. Zhang. Thank you. May I ask members to look at Table 3 on page 6. We've done a comparison on the 1st of February last year, when the level of rebate is increased from 10% to 30%. The financial year ends at the 31st of March. So what we compare is that after the new cash rebate level has come into effect to the end of the year, that means 11 years, and compare it with the same period of 2011. You see, the amount approved has increased by over threefold. For partnership projects pre-registered, there is an increase of 147%. If it's merely because of the increase of cash rebate level, the cash rebate level should only reach 16 million, but now it stands as 26 million. It shows that there are a lot more companies making the application. It's not just a result of the increase of cash rebate level. And a lot of them are partnership projects. That means companies pay the full cost to engage a local research institution. They are not projects under the ITF, but still they will get rebate. This is a very encouraging trend. We think that it will continue in the coming year. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, Commissioner, well, I hope that when the amount of commitment reaches 160 million, you should come to us. And you have also heard members about tax deduction. And I think the chance is slim this year. Perhaps you should talk to the Financial Secretary. Yes. I heard in the waiting room about only one item on in the March regular meeting. We actually proposed an additional item. Of course, it's subject to your to the arrangements you have. What is the other item? It's a CITB that makes arrangements of the items under discussion. But let me go back to check. We had in mind about measures to promote innovation and technology. We always have an item in each year. We thought that it would be in March. And my understanding is that there is already an item related to the mainland for the March regular meeting. I don't know whether there is some delay in the forwarding of documents, but I will go back to find out. I don't know whether it's because the Chinese New Year there are some hiccups. I will liaise with the Secretariat. Well, actually, we have an item in mind: Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. GMP. We want to implement GMP, and the administration said that they will give abundant assistance to SMEs. So we would like to talk to the administration about what kind of assistance will be given. Yes, last time we agreed with that, and we are waiting. Is it a joint meeting with the Health Services Panel? We have talked to the chairman, but they talk about the efficacies of the medicine, but we talk about manufacturing, GMP. So on the perspective, the entry point will be different. But you can tell me or let me know any time. Well, we have this item in mind. We just see if the administration agrees with it. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Next is item number 5. Review of the patent system in Hong Kong. We have with us the Secretary, Mr. Gregory So. His good self leading the team.
首先恭喜局長。
First of all, I wish that you will be healthy for the coming year and it will be a prosperous year for you.
And welcome the Secretary. And thank you for coming to this meeting personally. And also Deputy Secretary, Mr. David Wong. Principal Assistant Secretary, Ms. Patricia So, Director of Intellectual Property, Mr. Zhang. He's not here yet. Actually, the last item finished somewhat earlier. Secretary, you can take us through the paper. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to wish members prosperous year and good health. Now about the review of patent system in Hong Kong. About the present patent system from 1997 up to now is more than 10 years, and we have monitored the international trends. And in October 2011, we started a comprehensive review of the patent system, and we had public consultation so that our future position can tie in with economic development, and so that Hong Kong can be an innovation and technology hub in the region. We appointed the Advisory Committee on Review of the Patent System in Hong Kong. We have government officials and also the trade and industry people, and they will give us advice. In June 2012, we reported to members about the consultation exercise and the results, and also the progress of the review. In December 2012, the Advisory Committee considered public consultation, the input, and submitted a report to the government. It's about standard patents, the short-term patent, and also the patent agency services, 3 areas. Now for standard patents, the Advisory Committee suggests that there will be an original grant patent system with a substantive examination outsourced to other patent offices while retaining the current re-registration system. The Advisory Committee considered public views and also the vision of innovation and technology, and it thinks that the OGP system has strategic significance. Now for the OGP system, it shows the government to protect intellectual property rights. It will be comparable to other economies. Now for other Asian economies, like Taiwan, Korea, and Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei, and Macau, and other territories, they have this sort of system, the OGP. Now for the OGP for Hong Kong can decide for itself the standards and requirements, etc., and also the assessments and situations to suit Hong Kong's needs. And then for the OGP system, it will attract talents, it will promote the growth of patent agency services, and will provide job opportunities for our graduates in engineering and science fields. Now for the re-registration system, it will continue. It's well established, and the quality of a patent protected is very high, and the public wants to retain re-registration. Also for the short-term patents. Now we're talking about inventions with limited commercial life, and the maximum term is 8 years, and we'll keep this system. And there will be some enhancements. For example, before proceedings, we have substantive examination to prevent abuse. And for patent agency services, now for territories with OGP, they had legislation to regulate that, and the Advisory Committee suggested that for the long term, Hong Kong should have comprehensive system to regulate patent agency services. We're going to do it in stages. We can have transitional measures. We support the Advisory Committee's recommendations for further strategies to develop the patent system, and we accept the report. And in the coming days, we'll consult the Advisory Committee. We'll look at the implementation details. Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. Members, Mr. Charles Mok. Just now, I talked to several members. I wish Secretary success. Well, we hope that there can be licensing materialized this year. Now back to patent system. Many countries and territories have the OGP route. Hong Kong is somewhat slower. Now, one point, we hope that in future we can have some ancillary or supporting measures. Otherwise, we may take the measure of OGP, but nobody comes for application. A lot of companies do not understand the situation. So supporting measures are very important. Now, Director or Secretary, have you monitored the market situation? What do you think about the demand in the market? And secondly, about patents, about short-term patents. Actually, we have been talking about that for years. There have been some cases. In Hong Kong, there are some organizations introducing these measures, but some other people got the short-term patents which did not have to be subject to approval, and actually these original people suffered from legal proceedings. Now you have a reform. Of course, that's a good thing. But the question for the administration, how can we prevent past incidents? Of course, you are familiar with the cases. Some people make use of short-term patents. You do not scrap the system, but you want to reform it. How do you ensure that in the future we don't have some abuses? Some people get short-term patents and then they issue lawyers' letters and they ban other people from taking action, etc. So they target other people. So how will you prevent this sort of things from happening again? Secretary, actually the advisory committee has reviewed the present situation in Hong Kong about application numbers for patents. And we have compared ourselves with neighboring territories like Singapore. And we'll compare the application numbers. Actually, Hong Kong is comparable to that. But Hong Kong still does not have an OGP system. At this point in time, it's very hard to come up with specific estimated demand. But for the present proposals, we look at the actual needs in Hong Kong. As I said at the beginning, we also look at the need to develop talents, and we attach importance to research and technology. I think this sort of development is necessary. I agree with Mr. Mok. The supporting measures are very important. In terms of publicity, education is very important. We do it at the same time. About short-term patents. In the past, yes, a lot of stakeholders said that there was a litigation and we have to do something about it. So the reform this time actually wants to change the situation. Perhaps the director can explain the situations of different stakeholders. Yes, about Mr. Mok's question, yes, in the past we had certain cases. Some people got short-term patents and that was not approved, and so they said they had the patent and then they issued lawyers' letters, and there was some sort of a dispute. To prevent abuses, the advisory committee says that for a short-term patentee, if he wants to take action, say concerning infringement proceedings, they should furnish particulars about the short-term patent. For example, is it a prior technology, etc. If the information cannot be provided, then other people can say that the threat is groundless, and there can be legal remedy. Now, for the short-term patentee, if he wants to take legal action, he suspects that there is infringement, then the patentee has to go along with the recommendation of the advisory committee. There should be a substantive examination report, and then there can be legal proceedings. Now, for short-term patents, at present there is no substantive examination is is very quick and simple. And so before we take legal action, then a lot of time and money will be spent at that stage. That's why we want some reform. Thank you. Mr. Dennis Kwok, I have a question for the director, Mr. Zhang, about outsourcing. Now, for outsourcing, if you have this new system, yes, there may be a need for outsourcing, because in the short run we cannot really perfect the system and we don't have enough personnel, but there is a good opportunity for Hong Kong to develop this sort of system. We can create this kind of job opportunities, and we can develop talents. Say if we have this new patent system. A question for the director. Actually, outsourcing should not be our goal. We should have some local people to do it. So what is your plan actually in relation to outsourcing? Director? Now for OGP, we need massive resources. If we do it ourselves, say we need a massive data bank, a database. Because for OGP patent, we need an updated database. And we have to have expertise and the talents. So we need time to nurture that. So at the beginning, we need to outsource examination to other patent officers. What's the time scale? At this point in time, it's very hard to project the time scale. So when we can do it all ourselves. Now for Singapore, they took more than 10 years before they could do part of the work themselves. So for us, in the short run, whether we can do it ourselves, it takes time. For example, in terms of examination. So overall, for the OGP system, if we do it ourselves, plus it will take a long time. And also we have to look at cost effectiveness, and also we have to look at our resources. Now for legal experts, we have to nurture legal talents. It's not so difficult. See, in many legal aspects, we can attract legal specialists or talents to come to Hong Kong, and we can also nurture or train up our own talents. As for database, we hope that we won't take more than a decade to finish that or perfect that. But that's my view. I hope that the director or the secretary can listen to that. And secondly, about the regulatory regime in terms of patent attorneys, the mechanism. Now, some people think that we have to do it expeditiously. If we have this sort of a patent system, for this sort of patent attorneys, we have to monitor them, regulate them, so that we know that certain people can do it while other people cannot do it.
Anything to add, Secretary and Director? We're very eager to get different views. There are two different approaches when it comes to regulation. First, or one of them is a list or a mechanism setting out the type of qualified person, or it's a title, say for example, patent agents. If you use this title, then you will be regulated. These are two approaches. We will first accept the general direction. We will consult before we take the next step forward. When it comes to the OGP system, the original grant patent system, and also the reform, they will have to be done in tandem, but in stages, gradually. Next, Mr. Wong Kok Heng. Thank you. I'm happy to see this report. When it comes to the review of the patent system, back in 2010, in the last legislative term, I and Mr. Dr. Pei Chiu contacted some inventors. They feel that because there is no proper patent system in Hong Kong, their creations are being suppressed by conglomerates using the law, and there is very little profit they can make out of it. They cannot resort to the court. Their inventions have been stolen or plagiarized. I thank the administration, in particular the secretary. You were the former secretary as well. You accepted our proposal and you actually did something for us. So I thank the administration. And in relation to the paper submitted by the advisory committee, I have a couple of questions for the secretary. First, well, it's a question asked by other members. The substantial examination will be outsourced, or has been outsourced. We rely on our former sovereign, the United Kingdom. And it's been 15 years since the reunification, and we still don't have the capability to have in-house examination, but we can at least start to build it. The secretary has said that it may take over a decade, but perhaps we can have a review once every 2 years to see how much we have built, and we can rely on the mainland, the Ministry of Science and Technology, for the support to Hong Kong to build our OGP system. And in the paper, the short-term pattern and utility model, actually they are very different. But the line is very blurred, as set out in this paper. I believe there will be more disputes. Some inventors, they don't have power. They don't have bargaining power. So they see their invention stolen. So will the definition be follow up? And to provide actual support to inventors. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Wong. First, whether we will liaise with the Intellectual Property Bureau of the mainland to speed up the development in this regard. We have constant liaison with them. And if we decide to use the OGP system, of course, our country will play an important role. Perhaps the director will give more statistics or data about substantial examination. A lot of them has been done with the help of the Intellectual Property Bureau of the mainland. And about the actual difference, I will defer to the director. Mr. Wong's question is about patent registered. The mainland accounts for 60% of them. And every year, when it comes to standard patent, we are talking about 13,000 registrations. 60% of them are being examined by the mainland authority, and through the existing patent system in Hong Kong, they have been re-registered. And when it comes to short-term patent and utility model, I'd like to say for short-term patent or paddy patent, in English-speaking jurisdiction, when it comes to the time lag, they have a very short time lifespan. And that's why they need something that is swift in offering protection. When it comes to short-term patent, the criteria is lower, and in non-English speaking countries, there are a similar system in place. It's called utility model. It's something similar to the short-term patent. It's also about an invention. The structure of it or the combination of them will be put into actual use. The scope of under utility model is smaller than short-term patent. It's limited to industrial product. In English-speaking places, including Hong Kong, the short-term patent include invention of product and process. For utility model, it focuses on an invention of a product. For jurisdictions with patent systems, you either use English or not. If you use English, it's a short-term patent. Otherwise, it's a utility model. Through the short-term patent system, products or process registered on the mainland will be protected in Hong Kong as well. I hope that outsourcing will be reduced. And can you give me some more information about the liaison with the mainland counterpart? We constantly monitor the development. There will be a lot of work to be done if we develop the OGP system. And that is something of concern to us, and we will try to do our best. Next, Mr. Chung Kok Pen. We need the development of a patent system. We would like to develop Hong Kong into an IT hub, a regional innovation and technology hub. But in our neighboring places, they have already started development of such a system. So what edge do we have for us to be developed into a regional innovation and technology hub? Secretary, that itself is a very good question. We don't have a OGP system in place. We see that a lot of the transactions related to intellectual property rights are done in Hong Kong. We think that with an OGP system in place, it will further consolidate our position. Our edge lies in the protection of intellectual property rights, our legal system, and also our financial system. We also have a very high level of R&D. They all support the development of intellectual property. May I talk more about the trade of IP rights? They are not confined to certain products or R&D. When it comes to cross-border trade, Hong Kong services of arbitration in Hong Kong, legal services, accounting services of Hong Kong are being used. They are all very important. So we have many advantages. We think that the OGP system will further help us. More and more people would like to enter the mainland market, but we are also aware of the relatively little respect of intellectual property, and also things are being pirated. So can you tell us how IP rights can be protected on the mainland? we have a territorial patent protection, and there is a different patent protection system on the mainland. The director actually has done a lot in this regard. And when it comes to substantial examination of a patent, after if we have an OGP system, will anything be done to complement the development of this system? And this is something that we will further explore. We hope that with a system or mechanism in place, it will consolidate our protection of IP rights. Mr. Wang Ting-Kwong. Well, finally, they realized that there is a need to develop the OGP system. The DAB is happy to hear about this idea, and we hope that it will be implemented as soon as possible. If we are to develop the OGP system, we need a pool of talent. I have a question. Will the administration do something when it comes to training? Will they liaise with tertiary institutions in Hong Kong for them to start courses in this area? Something has to be done. Are there any plans when it comes to manpower training? Secretary, I thank Mr. Wong for his question. We hope that this reform will provide more job opportunities and a better career path for people in this discipline. And of course, we will liaise with the academia. Maybe there will be more courses to train manpower. We also liaise with other training bodies to provide courses. Next, Mr. Lo Wai Kwok. When it comes to innovation and technology, it is a very important part of future economic development. It's mentioned in the policy address. With supporting policies in place, and also good legal and sound legal system, a respect of intellectual property rights, and top quality academia. We will be able to do a lot when it comes to commercialization, transfer, and financing. So when it comes to protection, management of trading, they are all very important. But in Hong Kong, we don't have the OGP system. People are very anxious. The re-registration system is like the son of a mistress. You have to be first registered elsewhere. And this in turn impedes our development in this regard. This is belated, but at least it's a comprehensive review. And I think that the recommendations should be supported. That is, to retain the re-registration system and to develop the OGP system as soon as possible while keeping the short-term patent system.
Now, the paper mentioned the newly industrialized economies in Asia, like Taiwan and Singapore, etc. And they have some other territories which also have this sort of OGP. Actually, the industrial contribution to Hong Kong is somewhat neglected. Now, many of our factories are not in Hong Kong, that's true. But for the industrial chains, many high-value added activities like management, development of products and technology in terms of IP, actually they are still in Hong Kong. We have a lot of patent lawyers in Hong Kong. So local and foreign lawyers also work in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is an international trading center. So we do still have this sort of type of work in Hong Kong. As for technological experts or talents in Hong Kong, many of our universities actually are having very high rankings in Asia or in the world. So as Mr. Wong said, we need to train up people. We need to have university programs. I think the universities and the VTC should take note of this, and then we can have this sort of programs. We are qualified to have this sort of training programs. As for outsourcing of substantive examination, it's not a short-term measure. Hong Kong wants to develop its own examination capability. So we must train up our people. This should be our strong point. If we talk about patents, actually the scope is very extensive. And there are certain aspects where Hong Kong is not the foremost territory. So we need cooperation from other territories, especially the mainland. The mainland specialized organizations. Of course, locally in Hong Kong, we hope to nurture our own talents and strengths. But for outsourcing of examination, we need to have a comprehensive and sound system so the people who have the things registered in Hong Kong will have confidence in Hong Kong. Many patent registration systems in other countries also have this sort of regional collaboration. There's no problem about this. A more specific issue is encouraging to see that we have a preliminary time scale for OGP. Of course, it's just the recommendation, but I hope that this can be implemented from 2016-2017. If we have the OGP implemented, that is very good. So if we can commencement of the OGP in 2016-17, that is very good. I'm not sure if the Bureau has more specific action plans so that you can reach this target. Or is it true that it's just something castle in the air? Is it concrete? I'd like to thank Mr. Low for his view, and the view is very comprehensive. And of course, we have to keep abreast of the times. Of course, if we have the OGP system, then internationally speaking, this will send a strong message to the international community. It shows that we attach importance to international intellectual property and technology. And the industrial sector, in terms of technological developments, actually is moving towards high value added aspects. So the advisory committee has representatives from the industrial sector because the users and people in this field are very important. What Mr. Low said is correct. Patents encompasses different levels and aspects and different types of technology. It's very hard for us to take care of all of this ourselves at one go. So we have to consolidate our position. As for the timetable, I hope that members can support this timetable, and we hope cooperation from members. NXP has the timetable. It also includes drafting introduction of a bill, etc., and also preparation of subsidiary legislation. So we'll move on with this sort of work. We hope that members can interact with us so that we can implement the legislative amendments, to deal with the legislative amendments. As for this time scale, It's just a tentative timetable. We'll consult with the advisory committee and we'll look at concrete steps to see how we can implement certain aspects. We have the sincerity to go ahead with this. Mr. Sin, about OGP system in Hong Kong, the government has the resolve and the courage. That's good. But as Mr. Chong said, we have a lot of worries. First, about the OGP system, I'm not sure about the financial commitment. Okay, you have the system in place, and then the applicants may have to pay a substantial fee for patent system. You know that you need finance to support that, and people have to pay. So if you have OGP system, so what are the financial implications, and what money are we talking about in terms of registration? Now, Mr. Wong mentioned very poor inventors, they go to the governments for registration and there's no money. And the government will have to come up with a scheme to subsidize people to apply for patents. So on the left hand, you have a system, you receive money. Perhaps on the right hand, you ask people to pay. And so perhaps it's a black hole for the government in terms of financial implications. Have you done any assessment about that? With the famous Sin for his question. As I said earlier on, it's about cost effectiveness. This is very crucial. About the OGP system, yes, we need a lot of resources. Talk about the library or database. We need the talents. Yes, we'll come back to LegCo for funding. And we need members' cooperation and support. And one of the recommendations is to keep the re-registration regime that is well established. And we have this double-track system, the re-registration and the OGP. Now for the OGP implementation, at the earlier stage we have to do outsourcing. It's because of deployment of resources. We have to deploy resources flexibly. And we have to rely on the resources of the outside patent offices. So it's very hard for us at this stage to talk about a scale of fees. Of course, we have to consider the local inventors as to the financial burden and how much they can afford. Now we have some sort of patent funding so that people can apply for that for the first time, like $150,000. So we support technological development, and so the inventors want assistance. We're glad to help them. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. I'll follow up, Mr. Sin. Now, the administration has given an answer. Okay, for re-registration is about more than $100,000. Now for OGP, is the fee higher or lower? Is it dramatically higher or lower? Let's not talk about the cost. Okay, people may want to register re-registration or OGP. According to your estimation, what will be the fee? Perhaps the director can some information. Perhaps you have free areas that people can contact. So there are differences in terms of monetary terms. But of course, we look at our cost effectiveness and also our financial commitments. The director, about the cost, it depends on the route you choose for re-registration. You go to the state intellectual property administration or the UK patent office or the European patent office. Now, first, you go to these patent authorities. you get the permission for invention in terms of patents. You have to pay the official fees, and also describing the inventions about the request for the rights, etc. Then we have fees. Official fee, very general, is not too high in Hong Kong for re-registration in Hong Kong. It's about $900. And of course, about the drafters, it's very hard to tell. And it depends on the level of technology. Is it biotechnology or information technology or other kinds of technology? Okay, if we have OGP in Hong Kong, then directly you can do the application in Hong Kong. Now, some inventors, they are the startups. They want to opt for high tech. They're not familiar with that. Hong Kong is their base. They hope to register in Hong Kong. But Hong Kong is very good at keeping information confidential, and we have a good legal system, and we have good management experts. So they have a basis. They have to spend the OGP fee. They do it in Hong Kong, they pay it in Hong Kong. If there are other research organizations in Hong Kong, they do similar research, then the inventions will be protected in Hong Kong. So people will not infringe upon the work. So they have this basis in Hong Kong, and then they can be related to certain risk investment companies or other investors, and then they can assess the commercial value. Of course, Hong Kong's market is not very big, but we have a sound basis. Then we can look at other markets in the world, and then they can launch applications suitably. Now, for the ultimate market, that is the world, so they can apply for patents for inventions in many places. Then the money spent in Hong Kong is very hard to calculate, because actually the whole picture is very big. It's very hard to identify the fees at this point in time. It depends on the stage of the invention or patents, also the backgrounds of the companies.
I support the introduction of the OGP system in Hong Kong. If we have this system, it will complement the development of the different industries in Hong Kong. I also understand that the Hong Kong SARG has been in constant liaison with the State Intellectual Property Office on OGP. It may sound simple, OGP, but it's a one-stop service, but it needs support of different areas. Some people would approach lawyers or patent attorneys. I heard that they will only charge several $100s, but I believe that it will be more. Or it will be done by the authority. But many people have approached lawyers to do it, and I think it will certainly cost more than several $100s. We do need to train our manpower, and at the moment, you adopt the approach of outsourced examination. You do it with the State Intellectual Property Office. I think the most important issue is fees. You're only recognized in Hong Kong, but what about other places? If you want it to be recognized, if you want your patent to be recognized in Shenzhen, you will have to do the whole thing, go through the whole process again. If you want to help our youngsters, then you should aim at getting mutual recognition in different countries. I understand that there are a lot of factors in play because every jurisdiction thinks that their system is the best. It's not an easy negotiation. Well, a question for the Secretary. First, well, can you talk to the State Intellectual Property Office about mutual recognition? Because after all, it's a motherland, it may be easier. And if this can be done, it will be beneficial to the industry. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Lam, for his question. The Director has been in constant liaison with the State IP Office. I'll defer to the Director. Starting from last year, we've explored with the State IP Office about outsourcing of substantial examination if we have OGP system in Hong Kong. Of course, the State IP Office has their own consideration. The five major patent office, that is UK, US, Japan, Korea, and China. There is a constant increase of a new patent. China ranks first. We're talking about 500,000 patents being applied for every year. They aim at keeping the waiting time short given the heavy workload. We'll explore the possibility. I fully subscribe to Mr. Lam's idea about mutual recognition. If we can get mutual recognition between Hong Kong and the mainland, it will be beneficial. But we need a common basis. We need to have an OGP system, and we need to have the capability to conduct substantial examination as our bargaining chip. When it comes to biochemical or the academia, if we, in the long run, has reached a certain level, when it comes to our substantial examination, then we will have bargaining power to negotiate with the State IP Office. We want to take the direction of introducing our OGP system so that we can alleviate our status. There are a lot of work to be done if we are to become a regional hub. What the Director said indicates a good direction. If we set up a base here, then there will be a lot of opportunities for other service sectors as well. Mr. Andrew Lau. We strongly supported this report. Secretary, you heard that we all support the idea of the OGP system because it will be beneficial to Hong Kong. Hong Kong can take on IP trading. We can attract overseas investors or R&D to Hong Kong, and if they if they obtain patent, then it will be Hong Kong can serve as a gateway for them to enter China because many of them are concerned about entering China, we need to give them a protection. To take them into China, it will be a very good thing. I hope the Director and the Secretary will do more, because this will be conducive to Hong Kong's long-term high value adding industry. When it comes to the advisory committee, I hope the Secretary will keep it. We support you. We hope you will get the necessary funding from the Financial Secretary. Members of the advisory committee are very experienced. They can monitor you. Manpower is very important. We need to train our manpower. ETC has organized a program with Warwick University. This has been done for 2 or 3 years, and we are aware of the importance. I think it's easy for other tertiary institutions or universities to offer such programs. But we have to be the first runner. We should not lag behind. This advisory committee can be a steering committee to guide you. I agree with a review once every 2 years. It doesn't need to be a yearly or annual review like the statutory minimum wage. How can IP trading complement that? We need to have the patent system before IP trading can flourish. Branding is equally important, just as important as invention. Say, for example, the Federation of Industries, 3 or 4 decades ago, there was already a design registry. It occupied a secondary position, but if it can be elevated to a prime position, then it will be conducive to development of brands. Support is very important. We need a supporting team. What resources do you have? How can we help you seek more resources? It's very rare that you get unanimous support, and I hope that you will get the necessary resources to implement it. I thank Mr. Leung for his views, and I fully subscribe to what he said. I'm glad to hear from members that they all support our proposal. We will carefully look at where resources are used, and we'll cooperate with legislators to put in place a good system. The advisory committee will continue to do its work. We'll explore with the advisory committee about implementation of the proposal. As I've said, a representative of the industrial sector is very important. Mr. Leung mentioned about IP trading. We have innovation and creative industries branding apart from invention. This will enrich our development to become the regional IP hub. Thank you. Mr. Liu Chong-kong, Martin Liu. I'd like to state my stance. We support the administration's proposal of the OGP system because this is a role that we have to take in the end. But I have a couple of questions. First, fees. We have OGP system. What is the difference of cost or fees between standard pattern, which we have currently? The next question. A lot of patent applications in the US are related to information technology, which is not booming in Hong Kong. A lot of information technology inventions are done by infant industries. And if they are to make patent applications, if it attracts a high cost, will the administration subsidize them? If we are to introduce the OGP system, we need to have supporting facilities. We have to have professionals. It's a highly specialized discipline. Now, they include patent attorneys, patent agents. Are there any supporting measures in place to groom a pool of talents? In Hong Kong, are there any manpower training, any assessment mechanisms, regulatory regime in place? Any plans? Secretary. Fees. First, I thank Mr. Liu for his support. Many members support our proposal. It is the fruit of many months of labor of our team. At the initial stage, when it comes to the outsourcing of examination, we will put in place a system to keep costs at a low level. When we build a data bank, we need a lot of resources. We can gradually develop our capability to do in-house substantial examination. We have no information about what the future fees will be, but when it comes to outsourcing, as the director said, that the fees will be low. We will design the system taking into consideration the needs of the sector. We also liaise with professional bodies about training. We also liaise with universities in the design and offering of programs for students. Thank you. Any other members who would like to ask questions? Secretary, you've heard. Nearly all members support this proposal. Like he said, that your work over the years has not been wasted, and you will come to the Financial Committee to seek funding approval, right? Yes. Thank you. Item 6. Any other business? Well, just now I've mentioned that in the next meeting there is only one item for discussion, so we have an empty or a vacant slot. Can we talk about TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, the government's assistance in relation to GMP? shall we hold a public hearing to ask deputations to come to speak to us about what they need? Do you agree? Yes. Thank you. Perhaps the clerk will liaise with the administration. And that is another matter. A long time ago, Ms. Emily Lau and Mr. Wong Ting Kwong mentioned about an official visit of this panel to Taiwan. Are you still interested? Do you think it's a good idea? I asked you, Miss Lau, is it worth our while? You mentioned it, and that's why I ask.
Yes, we need some preparation for the tour. How about duty visit in the summer this year? Well, it depends on the Secretariat. There'll be some work to be done by the Secretariat. With Taiwan, there's not much work to be done. We are not meeting Ma Ying-jeou or Tsai Ing-wen. Yes, the idea was raised. That's why I want to raise this for members' discussion. Yes, Ms. Emily Lau mentioned that. Mr. Chairman, if there's no specific purpose for a duty visit, then we don't have to go. Yes, we have a lot of work. Let's shelve the duty visit plan, okay? No other item on the AOB, okay, meeting adjourned.